Hey, everybody, welcome to this conversation in the spirit of being in the AJC Coaching Career School. I'm having these conversations with different members on client creation, generating conversations. And we have someone special here named Julian. And Julian and I had gotten into conversations, and he was just sharing his background in sales and his father being in sales. And so there's so many uh, amazing things here that I think are going to come from this conversation. And so, Julian, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, because you know yourself better than I do.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's. I'm so grateful to be here. When you, James, when you and I spoke and met like a good month ago, we had a beautiful conversation, and then, I mean, we spoke a lot of things about the school, about the beauty of what we already have been creating before the school, through the school, and we will continue creating till we meet in person. And I was really like it was really nice when I got your message and you said I've been doing these series. I would love. There was something that you said that stood out to me, and you had just mentioned it again now before we started recording, where I had told you that oh, like from a very young age, I always tell people that I think I've had the best internship that any child could have really asked for, and that's because my father, he had a tough upbringing in his childhood, and when he was 18, he was handed the role of provider at a very, very young age, taking care of his younger siblings, even his parents, his dying mother. And all this to say is that when we grew up, my brother and I, he always said to us, I want you and your brother not to suffer in the same way that I suffered, but I would love for you guys to learn the same values that I learned through my suffering. And some of those were going out, meeting people, learning about the value of money, learning how to talk to people, how to kill our shyness. So he would take. So he was building businesses, learning how to. He was a self-made man, and as I said, given this role of provider. And one of his businesses he had was a. And this is what James was alluding to when he said before we got on the call. He told me this was the part that really stood out to me, and I told James, I said, I was 14 and I was traveling a lot with my dad from the ages of 8 to 18, going to different hotels, different countries, different people, meeting a lot of different entrepreneurs, businessmen, a lot of older people. I was hanging out with people that were 2 to 3 times older than me and, observing all these things. And one time I was 14 and he said, we're going to go and you're going to learn how to sell door to door. And I remember thinking, like, I'm 14. I don't even have a suit. He said, no, no worries. We went in our city. We went to buy a suit. And I always say this to people that I felt like Pretty Woman because I was like
Yeah.
here with my father and sister choosing our suits. So I chose a suit. We bought one and then we fly to Peru, to Lima, Peru, to South America, as if it wasn't enough to go to door in our city. We had to go all the way to a foreign city speaking Spanish. Well,
Right.
I grew up in Spain, so I spoke Spanish, but it wasn't my mother tongue. And I got there and I remember he left me with this guy who I didn't know, and I spent 10 to 12 hours that day learning how to knock on doors one by one. And a lot of people were obviously not opening the door because they saw a kid wearing a suit and they were kind of confused. And finally, at the end, I was able to, I would say I learned a lot. And the main thing I learned was how to kill my shyness. And anyway, that was the
Mhm.
story that prompted this conversation and why we're here. And anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. But thank you for having me, James. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. This is so exciting, and thank you for sharing that background because I think it really gets people uh, up to date. Because I think, yeah, knocking on doors, right, is I mean, I would view it as a pretty bold thing, and I don't know about you, but when it comes to coaching and helping people, I think in a lot of the things that I see, right, some of it is marketing online, and people are making websites and business cards and a lot of different things, and there's usefulness. And I also have the belief that human connection and relationships are the foundation to
Mhm.
creating a business, to creating clients. And I think a lot of times, um, my experience and experience with coaches is we get to be creative, we get to be the owners of our business. However, what comes with that is sometimes we might be racking our brain on, well, how do I connect with people, or what's the thing that I'd like to do next? But when we hear someone else talk about what has worked for them, what they found helpful, it brings together this balance of the being and embodiment,
Mm,
but also the practicality of action steps, right? And we talk about this in the school, right? If someone's just hearing this going, oh, you know what? He said to do this thing and I'm just going to do it to try and get a client, it's not going to work. But also, if you are just in being without sort of like bumpers or direction or parameters, it can almost be like you're just kind of skipping rainbows, right? I saw someone in a group the other day where someone said, hey, I really want to help teachers and students. And one of the comments was, well, if you just continue to be that, then it'll all happen in the right time.
mm,
And I thought, well, maybe, but also maybe not. I think sometimes
yeah.
people could use a bit of direction. And so that's why I want to talk about as well, what you found helpful to generate conversations, right? That is for your own self, your own practice of what has
Mm.
helped you connect with people. Does that make sense? I know I just kind of
Yeah.
went on a little bit about it, but
Not at
yeah.
all, man. Not at all. That makes a lot of sense, and you're spot on because we even spoke about this in the latest webinar we had, right? How a lot of people love to get a 10-step guide on how to's, right? On doing. And that's why, I mean,
Yep.
personally, the reason I joined the one of the many reasons I joined the school was this big focus on being. Like there was not a mention about strategy, about funnels, about again, those are important and they can be helpful, but yeah, there's nothing more beautiful than leaning and, like you said, tapping into and embodying your true being. And in terms
Hmm.
of what you're saying of creating conversations, and from my experience, James, I'd say that yes, that one experience when I was 14 really shaped me, and I genuinely think it killed any ounce of shyness that I could have had at that age. And growing up, I still remember that very vividly. But I would say even today now, because obviously I didn't start my practice till like a decade later than since that experience. So what I see now today and every day is there's a just the ability to be around people and be with people is really the reason why I became a coach. Was I always wanted to work with people. Every job I had, every internship, every experience I did, the common thread was always other humans, and I loved
Hmm.
that ability of just being with them, creating. I don't say possibilities, but creating ideas, visions, speaking about things, and then being with each other, which is something that I was like, is there a job like that? Like, is there something that I can do like that? And I see now how I always did that in my whole life. I was always who I was being. Like, I was being the person, I think without thinking much about it, to be honest, I was being that person of, I love talking to people. I love being social. I'm a very naturally curious
Hmm.
person. I'm genuinely interested, and I care more about being interested than interesting. So all that was just who I was being. And now that I've seen that that's how a lot of the clients I've created have come from continually being that, I think that now it's the interesting, delicate dance is how do you not get lost in the thought of having an agenda behind that conversation, right?
Hmm.
What do you think of that, man? What do you hear when I share that?
Yeah, I agree. And I was listening to something the other day, right? Because I think in business you want to have ownership of the activities that you're doing during the day. You want to look at are you actually doing activities that connect you with people?
Mm-hmm.
Um, or are you working on, are you working on stuff in the background? So when you say that, right, that what I'm hearing is you've actually become so acquainted to being around people and in conversation that you don't want the agenda to just be having them as a client. Did I
Yeah.
get that right?
Spot on, because I think that if I look back, and I was reflecting on this recently, like if I look back to a lot of my life before I became a formal or professional coach, I was already somebody who was enrolling people in a lot of stuff that maybe had nothing to do with and definitely nothing that I got profit from. Like I can tell you when I was in college, I there was this one nightclub that I loved going to, and then I wasn't a big partier, but just like that one club that I go out on that Thursday, it was a $5 cover. It was cheap. We got a great deal from it, like drinks to cover ratio. And the best part was like the people that were going were all first year students, which was my first year in college, and the energy, the music, I loved it. So I was enrolling, I would say is the word I would use, to get other friends, acquaintances, people who I didn't know from a hole in the wall that I would meet one day on campus or at a class, and get them to come, not for my sake, because again, I didn't work at the club, I got nothing from it, but because I knew how fun it would be for them. And why I'm sharing this with you is to
Mm,
tell you that I was really reflecting on this the other day of I've always been, I would say humbly, like a master enroller. And that's one example, but enrolling people into doing things where I had zero agenda, where I had nothing out of it, just out of their pure sake. And it's funny because in the club example, James, some of my friends genuinely thought I was a promoter at that club, and I wasn't. But this, I can tell you this with movies, with TV shows, with music, all these, I wouldn't say, I don't want to call them trivial things, but less like when we're comparing them to coaching and transforming people's lives. Well, this is a very different thing, but and that's why now when we're talking about the highest level of transformation that we can talk about, which is what we get to do as coaches, well, that enrollment naturally comes through. And I think it's like I told you, that delicate dance of tapping back into how can I enroll someone for their sake without me profiting from it. And it's, again, it's hard sometimes to do that because subconsciously you get something out of it if it means that they end up working with you, right? So
mhm.
yeah, how do you feel that you navigate that in your own conversations?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that there's a couple things that I'll touch on here because when it comes to business, one of the phrases that I've come up with is for your business have an agenda, but when you're with someone, drop the agenda, right? Like I have no agenda other than just being there with them and really hearing
Mm-hmm.
and listening and um, loving them. And so I think in terms of like if I'm thinking about business, that's the context that I come from. In terms of what you're sharing, I really love that, right? And you had written a post on this of the club, and to me, I think I find that fascinating because it sounds like for you, right, knocking on door to door, like really killed that shyness, and so I think that's something that I have gradually grown out of, and I think for you that almost kind of just like knocked you out of it, especially experiencing that at a younger age.
Yeah.
And so it sounds as though what I'm hearing is when you're with people, you're not necessarily having an agenda of trying to get them to do something. So if we use the example of that club, you really loved it. And so it sounds like you loved it so much that you wanted to share that with others.
Yeah.
Which I think there's a nuance here, right? There's a little bit of a difference because someone might say, "Oh, well, I want my agenda is that I want to have them at the club, right with me." But what I'm hearing is that it's almost as though you have some food that you like, and when someone's over, you're like, okay, you need to try this. Like it's so good that you just want to keep sharing it. And I think so that's what I'm hearing on the club is that
Mm.
it was just such a great experience and such a good deal that you wanted to share that with others because how could
Yeah.
they not want to be a part of it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Especially when you continue, and that's why I think context. And that's why I'm saying the big thing. And you're spot on. And I love the example of the food, James, because it's again, it's how like what a disservice to have this incredible meal and not want to share it with somebody else, right? So I think that's the way I see it. And it's funny because I just remembered something of when I was doing the door to door experience. A lot of the things my father would share with me, I would say he was my first coach, really, and then he was a coach in the purest sense of the word, without ever really being a professional coach. But one thing he always told me and my brother was that shyness was just a fear of embarrassment, a fear of rejection, and a fear of hearing the wrong thing. And that
Mm,
essentially shyness was just a huge blocker to success because you were doing a disservice. You were hiding your talents. Like really, that's what it was. You were like, it's like what you said. It's like if I have a great food or I'm a great chef, right? It's like, oh, what a disservice is it if I don't share that gift with other people, right? Same like us. If you're such a great coach, James, like if there's somebody who you can genuinely help, what a disservice. Like, how rude of you to not let them know about it. And that's kind of like the approach sometimes when I knew there was, and sometimes it's having that conversation with yourself, but I'm talking about it in the context of a nightclub, and in the context of college. It's the first year of college. A lot of the students I met, I knew they were there to meet people, to party. That's what first year of college is like. But again, now the intentionality behind it is, I think, what matters most, especially when you meet people, right? I have a coach who, and I posted this today on Facebook, where this coach who I'm working with, or I've been working with him, he shared the story about, he went for a dinner like 3 months ago with his wife and another couple, and it's been 3 months that it marked him, because he remembers, and I know, and you'll see why it marked him when I tell you. The husband shared something about something he was struggling with, and this coach, the guy who was telling me the story, he is equipped perfectly to help that husband with that exact thing he mentioned. And guess what? He didn't say anything out of the fear of being weird, because he didn't want to be that guy who says, "Oh,
Mm.
come talk to me, I can help you." And and I asked him the question. I said, if you were a doctor and you had a cure, and that guy had an illness, let's say hypothetically for something, would you have still kept it to yourself? He says, immediately he was like, "Of course not. Of course not. Of course I would have told him, if I'm a doctor, I have that cure." I said, why is that any different? Why is that any different? Right? Like, at
Mm.
the end, it's just because coaching and the profession is not seen in the same way that we see doctors, that we see lawyers. And that's why, at the end, I think, to go back to what you're saying with enrollment and creating conversations, is it's always about, we make it too personal. We make it about us when it has nothing to do with us. Right? What do you think?
Yeah, that I love that. I think that's wonderful. A question. Well, I think what's wonderful about that is, I think that does happen for people, right? They do see that they could help someone, or even if it's not them, they might have a resource that could move
Yeah.
them on to the next step in their journey, and simply sharing that. Um,
Yes, sir.
the question that's coming through is, yeah, the question that's coming through is, you talked about, right, him being at the dinner and hearing that. I almost think of the getting to the dinner, even in the first place, right? Because I think
Mm.
it's, yeah, I talked to someone the other day, and I think, and this might be the shyness, right, that I think a lot of people can experience, even though they love people, is, and I think you're absolutely right. They have perhaps shyness or concern with themselves, or they feel bothered, so their ability to be out there with people is actually limited, right? Because they're
Yeah.
probably in more thoughts around themselves, or when they think of getting out there, it can almost feel like there's a barrier. And so I love this example of being out to dinner, or even at the college with the people, and you knew they're at college, they want to meet people. So I even think of like the connecting. And so the question I have is, did you just, because when I think of going up to people, I'm like, are you just going up and you're like, by the way, there's this club, here it is, and that's why people thought you were a promoter, and you're just
Mm.
wanting to share it? Like, were you connecting in a sense of that it was random, or was it more organic, where you just involved yourself in
Mm.
activities and people, and then these conversations gradually came about?
Mm. That's such a great question, man. It's
And
cool because,
yeah, I'll
yeah,
let
it's a
you
great
keep
question.
marinating on that. The reason why I am thinking about this is, I think as someone's owning their business, there's this balance between honoring their pace, and things do happen gradually as they continue to surround themselves with people, but also balancing this self authorization of, I actually have a responsibility to be out there with people in order to um, be helpful, to
Hmm.
actually make a difference for people, and taking ownership of that. So yeah, that's why I was curious on the, like, just
Yeah.
being out there with people, and creating that connection.
I love it, James. I love it, man. It's a great question, and a great, even observation, I'd say, because I would say that if I look back, honestly, it wasn't like I was going around, and still I'm comparing it even now to my coaching practice. I'm And this is where I think the active effort comes in to remove that agenda, like you said, because and I think the common thread I see is your conscious purpose. I'm not saying that when I was in college, it was my conscious purpose to get people to come clubbing with me, but it
Right.
was in my consciousness. It was in my mind that, I'm doing this Thursday, and I know this is going to be great. And every person, the majority, I said 99% of the people I was meeting in my day to day life, in classrooms, in coffee shops, at the cafeteria, in lectures, at the gym, everywhere where I was meeting people, it was people who were in similar situations to me, who were
Mhm.
students in their first year, and who, so naturally in the conversation, by just being curious and being with the person, it come up where I would hear something in there that felt like the perfect of, oh, you don't have school Friday? Well, guess what? I'm doing Thursday night. You should come. Just as an example. And I think
Mm.
now when we're talking about the coaching, in the coaching realm, it's in that guy at dinner, right? It's the same thing. You're talking to people and you're going to be doing things on your day to day. We all go to the grocery store. We all go to the gym, or some of us go to the gym. Some of us go to the grocery store. We go on walks. Everybody has their own version of doing something where there are other humans, right? At the end, last we checked, there are humans everywhere. So,
Yeah.
like, at the end,
Billions. Yeah.
man, billions of humans, right? And it's like what that exercise that Ankosh did with us in one of the first webinars, which is like not getting attached to a person, because that's one person out of 7 billion, 8 billion, right? That we can, maybe even we won't even have that much access to all of them in our lifetime. So there are humans everywhere. And I find that if the way I approach every conversation is not from the place of I have this coaching program, or I have this book, I have this resource, I have this school that I know is going to be amazing for you, is I'm curious to get to know you. I want to be in your presence just like I did when I was before becoming a coach. That's who I was. I keep being that. But now, because the coaching profession is part of my conscious purpose, and who I've become has become way more of service, of love, like you said. Well, now those things naturally come out of me, that my mind automatically goes to, oh, I know exactly what article to send that guy. I know exactly what book to send him. I know exactly what, like, it's become in every single conversation I've had. I'm committing people to reading things and watching things, or enrolling in our school, or enrolling in a different coach or with me, because I know it's what will serve them. And at the end, that's been fun, because it ends up making it like it. I think it's something that the average person doesn't have from a conversation. They don't have somebody who random person they just met who commits them to do something. So I think it adds that element of uniqueness. But at the end, it's not like I'm going. There's a lot of people that I haven't committed to things, a lot of people, but there's also a lot of
Mhm.
people that I do. So I think it's not about what I do, or who it is. It's just what comes up in that moment. And I think because it's part of your conscious purpose at the end, naturally, as a coach, one that's immersed and that's professional, that's studying hard, that's making it part of their everyday life, like we do, and like many of the coaches in this program do, well, naturally, if who you're being is of service and of love, then there's no doing to do it. It'll just ooze out of you. Am I making
Yep.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely making sense. And ultimately, the main thing that there's a few main things that I heard. The one that's really standing out to me though is because you've dropped the agenda, you're really open to be present with another person. And when you're doing that, what are the ways in which you get to know people? Because I mean, even from our experience, I have a sense that there's something about your openness and just the place that you come from, that there's no agenda felt, and but it adds to a depth of conversation. The example that I'm thinking of is I could see, an average person going through a grocery store line, and it's just like the exchange of money and the checkout. And maybe for you that's what it is sometimes, but I picture you as someone who is probably engaging in conversation while the groceries are being checked out versus just waiting for the person to do their job. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
you have an ability to connect with people that I think you have probably grown over time. And so, yeah, I'm just curious what's that like, and yeah, if you could illuminate more of that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Well, firstly, thank you for the observation and the acknowledgement. It does mean a lot. It's something that I have worked hard at, and I think I said this to you when we connected for the first time, how I used to be someone who stuttered a lot. Do you remember
Mm-hmm.
that? And
Yep.
so, and I still speak very quickly because I'm very passionate with certain things. But before I used to speak so quick that my brain couldn't keep up with my lips, or my lips couldn't keep up with my brain, whichever one it is. And so a lot of the time, I think I would shy myself away from conversations or speaking to people out of that fear, one of judgment for my stuttering and my speech. But so I worked really hard. That's why, firstly, your acknowledgement means the world to me, because I worked hard at that. So thank you. And secondly, I would say that the answer to, or what you're saying is yes. I would say 90% of the time is the case, because yeah, I'm not immune. There's days where, like even what we spoke about yesterday, like sometimes I'm in a funk and I don't want to speak. I love my alone time. I love being alone. So as much as I love being with people, I've noticed sometimes that when I'm in a whole day of, I do 2 sessions in a day, and then I do a bunch of conversations, and then I meet people at the gym, and I don't know, by the end it's like 7 p.m. at night, and I'm starting to wind down and do my own things. All I want to do is be alone. And if I end up going to the grocery store, I probably won't really speak to. It really depends. Again, there's no hard written rule, but I think overall, most of the time, who I choose myself to be is to be that person who always engages in conversation with people from a place of curiosity, of always wanting
Mm-hmm.
to learn. And sometimes I've gotten people who really haven't vibed with it, and that's been fine. That's me serving the moment, and then that for me that was service. Like he in that moment, that's really what needed to happen. Who's
Mm-hmm.
next? And so I think I just approach every person. At least I aim to always approach every conversation and every person that I get to be with from a place
Mm-hmm.
of curiosity and wanting to learn more about them. I mean, there's something so beautiful about getting to know more about another human being, the way they think, the way they see the world, the what has you know created their path in life, right? And so I think contextual is also a big thing. Like we're talking about the grocery store, I don't know what I would start talking about there. I think it'd be very contextual, right? Of like, oh, do you live in the
Yeah.
city? And then we'll see if things go from there. But so I think the context is a big one. But overall, for me personally, my experience is I love getting to know other human beings.
Yeah. Could you tell me more about that curiosity and love to getting to know others? And I imagine that when it's coming from the agenda,
Mm,
that that curiosity and love are probably missing for people. What makes that curiosity and love possible for you? Like, what do you get from that connection with others from someone that maybe you're just meeting for the first time,
mm,
and you don't know where it's going? What does that? Yeah, what does that open up for you?
mm. It's a good one, James. So can you say that again, just to make sure I understood you, please? I want to make sure that I answer the question in a way that's of,
Yeah,
of highest
I'm.
of highest value.
Yeah, I'm gonna give. I'll give kind of two sides to this. I imagine there's a coach who might be hearing this, going, "Okay, I just need to meet more people." So then they start approaching
Mm,
people, and maybe they are trying to get to know them. Hey, are you from around here? Oh, what do you do? But kind of in the background, they're hoping somebody becomes a client, and the reason
mm,
they're doing this is so people become a client. For you, you have a natural love and curiosity of getting to know people, even people that you haven't met yet, or people that you do know at a deeper level. But I'm more curious on, as you are getting to know people that you haven't met yet, that curiosity and love, what is it that you're getting from, or not
mm,
even getting from, what does that do for you, right? That curiosity and love of meeting someone that you haven't met yet.
mm,
Because someone who's just trying to get a client, they might not even know what that
mm.
is, like what you're getting to experience without the agenda.
I hear you. Okay, I hear you. Yeah, yeah. It makes sense, because at the end, the last thing I want to promote is to tell people go create more conversations from the place of getting clients. Undoubtedly, and this is what I say is, if you are a coach and it's your full time thing, then naturally that comes up, and sorry, and usually and usually it's in my experience, it's been a lot of the time that the other person will be the one who will ask for more information of what it's like to work with
Mm.
me, because I think you've already helped them flourish and you've served them in some type of way. So, but to answer your question of like, it's hard because I think so much. It's a really good question. I don't know how to answer it just because of the fact that I when I approach those conversations with people, I genuinely have noticed, and especially, and that's why I think it's easier to do this offline, because online, your bio, your brand, your who you are online, that context shines through a little bit more when you DM people, when you connect with people. So I've noticed, at least offline, because there is no prior context of who you are, your brand, your bio, like I could meet you on Facebook
Mhm.
and I'll have a very different conversation to if I met you, the same person, at the grocery store. And I think it's
Yep.
at that grocery store where they're really, you don't like, it doesn't enter my mind of this is a potential client. What enters my mind is this is another human being. But just like all the clients that I'm working with are human beings, and naturally
Yep.
before they became clients, I was very curious of them. So I don't know if I'm answering the question. It's hard because I don't see that separation as much, and I'm trying to give it in a way where I can give an answer that's helpful for others, because I do hear what you're saying of a lot of people could be hearing what I'm saying and being like, oh, I should just go out and create more conversations and then I'll get more clients. Like undoubtedly, yes, you will get more clients, but don't go and do it for that. Go and do it because
Right.
why did you become a coach? I became a coach for connection, to be with people, because I wanted to spend my time being around people. I believe a lot in people, and I wanted to help people believe in themselves too. That was my reason. Now they
Mhm.
should be asking themselves, what's your reason? If your reason was because you wanted to, I don't know. I mean, maybe you can answer the question, James. What was your reason for becoming a coach?
Yeah, and if anyone hears like random screams, that's my daughter in the background. Uh, um, yeah. Well, I think there's this, and thank you for sharing that. And I really, really appreciate you, like, really kind of like racking your brain to try and answer it. And yeah, I would say there's something interesting, right? Because I think with anything, it's this element of being open where I once had a coach or a mentor, and he'd use this phrase. He'd say, "Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting." And I think that applies to almost everything, right? Because as we're getting to know people, we might not vibe, right?
Yeah.
Or they might not be interested. However, the more people that I connect with, the more opportunity there is to really have someone that I enjoy, right? Or just lights up my day, or I've noticed that I've lit up theirs. And so I think for me, it's really what I've gotten out of it is that when I'm connecting with people, I have a sense that I'm making a difference, even if I'm
Mm.
just saying hello to someone, right? Even if it is at a grocery store, sometimes I might say, "Hey, how's it going?" And then there might be the person who it's just like, "Yeah, it's fine," and that could sometimes that could be an opportunity that they have something going on, and it's like you get to be
Yeah.
helpful to them during the day, but other times it's the person who you really just feel their energy and it's like, oh wow, this is like a nice part of the day. And sometimes that's all it is, or sometimes the conversation continues. So yeah, I think for me it's just experiences with another human being. There's just such an opportunity to light up each other's
Yeah.
world
Spot
in
on.
different ways. And
Spot
also,
on.
humans are characters, and humans are characters, and sometimes it's just fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Spot on, man. And I love what you're saying, because at the end, it's sometimes serving the moment is, or serving the person is by serving the moment, which could be,
Hmm.
like you said, just saying hi, giving a smile, being present, remaining silent while someone talks. Like today I had a conversation with someone who I haven't seen in like a few months, and I think they spoke for 15 minutes and I didn't say really a word. And I could tell that actually, in that moment, I was really serving him because I could tell that this was something that was off, like on his mind for a while. He just wanted someone to be present and listen with their whole damn soul and heart. And again, I didn't plan to do that, and I didn't enter that conversation to do that. But that's just what happened. And sometimes it's giving into that moment is what really, and yeah, maybe that will not lead to anything. For now, it hasn't, or maybe it will. I don't know, but
Mm.
sometimes it's that magic as well that like you said, if it's meant to vibe and it's meant to energize and materialize in that way, it most likely will.
Yeah. Wow. I love this, and I appreciate you going along with this because I can totally see, right, like uh, you've really built the skill of connection, and I think that's a muscle I continue to grow.
Me
It's
too.
it continue. Yeah, I mean, it continues to be a practice, and so I imagine who's ever watching this, it's also a practice for them. And yeah, I really appreciate this, and I want to make sure that I respect your time. What would just from what we've talked about today, if someone's watching this and they're going, "Okay, I'm gonna drop the agenda. I'm just gonna really do my best to be out there in the world." What I'm hearing is you mentioned a conscious purpose,
Mm,
right? Is kind of something that has helped you be out there. Like it's
mm,
almost just something that you're doing and spreading. And what is that? What does that look like for you? And what might help someone? Like, is it an ever changing thing?
mm.
And what might help someone have that sense of purpose to get out there in the day?
I love it. Yeah, I love that question. I would say that it varies depending. I think it varies a lot, at least for me. It's varied a lot depending on the context of my life and what's happening in it, right? And like, so what like the example I would give is, I think right now being in that period of enrolling people and building my enrollment muscle through books, through resources and stuff, my conscious purpose is always surrounding enrollment. So I would say it just goes back to that why that we talked about of like, why did you become a coach, right? If maybe you're in a season
Mm-hmm.
of your life where you have a full practice and now you don't need more clients and all you want to do is build that connection muscle, for example, then great. Like your agenda is dropped by default because you don't need anything
Mm-hmm.
from them right now. So I would say that the less we need, the less we need, full stop, well, the better we are at connecting, right? And I think that's when the conscious purpose comes back in of like, what's the reason behind what I'm building? What's the reason behind who I'm being? And for me, the reason, but like the conscious purpose, at least right now, is I want to be this person who really, because I wasn't always this way, where I've let a lot of opportunities slide. Now my conscious purpose is I want to enroll people into their own lives for things that I know will make a difference for them. And sometimes that again is through exploring conversations and potential coaching containers with me, with other coaches, joining coaches schools like the ones that we're in, resources, books, movies, videos, audios, what have you, and sometimes just a conversation with no strings attached, whatever it is, that has become my conscious purpose. That now, more often than not, all my conversations have in some shape or form, I would say 8 out of the 10 conversations I'm having, if not even 10 out of 10 of them, have led to some sort of enrollment for the other person in some shape or form. Again, always
Mm.
with permission, always legally, always ethically, always morally. I don't force someone to do anything. I don't push them to it, but it's something that now is my current conscious purpose. I think the reason for it is because I've been realizing how in the past I let a lot of things slide. I let a lot of people say something that, like that guy at that dinner who said something and I knew I could help them and I didn't because I was either too
Mm.
shy or too afraid of being judged or too afraid of thinking that I was being salesy or what have you. So that's why now that's my current conscious purpose. And I think it's an ever evolving thing that I think will be very unique and personal to you based on what maybe on who you want to be more of, and two, based on your current season of life and what you're currently creating in that context, is what I would say.
Mm. I love that. And I think my last question. Um, you said enrolling someone into their own life. Could you share a little bit more on that of what that means to you
Mm,
and kind of what that looks like? Because we might have yeah, we might have a sense that um, people are living their life, but what does that mean for someone to be enrolled into their own life, whether that's with
mm,
you or whether it's a resource like you're talking about?
mm. And that's where I would say that, yeah, I love it, James. That it's interesting. It's an interesting distinction, right, between just living their lives and enrolling them in their lives. I would say that it goes back to even kind of that conscious purpose. Like for maybe if someone's conscious purpose is just being of more service, being of more love, and I would say even enrolling someone into approaching a certain resource. And we can go with resource for now because it's what, again, out of those, I said 9 out of 10 times I do that with someone. Out of
Hmm.
those 9 out of 10 times, I would say 7 out of those 9 usually tend to be to a resource or an article. And the reason for that is it's lower friction for someone at the
Yeah.
beginning. And I would say just committing someone to it and making them read it with a different lens, a different viewpoint, and committing to read it by a certain date and committing them to get back to you with their thoughts. I mean, you know this, you listen to it differently. You
Hmm.
show up differently. You hear it from the realm of what's possible for you. You don't hear it from the realm of do I agree with what the speaker is saying? Do I disagree with what the speaker is saying? I don't hear it from the
Hmm.
realm of, oh, I like the speaker. You know the amount of people who I've sent resources to in the past, and I just sent it, and then they're like, oh, I really didn't like this guy. Like I didn't like the way he spoke. I don't like the way he dressed. I was like, really? That wasn't the point. You missed all the gold. And so
Hmm.
that's when I say I think enrolling someone in their life, it's if I'm sending you this, I'm not just sending it to you for fun. I'm sending it to you because I know that I heard something in what you said. And if you're open to it and you come to it with an open mind and an open heart, then you're going to hear something in it and what I maybe heard from it. Or it's like what we said again in one of the webinars that sometimes loving the shit out of someone is telling them their blind spots, speaking the truth. And sometimes we can do that through resources and through things where they can start picking up on things for themselves. So I think enrolling
Hmm.
someone into their life is sometimes committing them to reading and watching and taking certain actions even in their lives that if it wasn't for that commitment, that enrollment, to that promise, that they maybe wouldn't have done it and wouldn't have led to something else, right? I can think of 100 examples that I could share that where I've enrolled someone to do something or read something or watch something or be something that it ended up exponentially changing their life. And now the person they were before that is not the same one that is here with us after that.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing an example of
Yeah.
just like, yeah, because maybe someone's curious on what that even looks like or sounds like with someone.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe I can share it, and I can share one example that happened recently from the realm of creating conversations and client creation, which is what we're
Sure.
speaking about today. And one of them was this guy who we met online through a social platform, and I think it was on Twitter or LinkedIn, and we just connected. And one thing that you asked me that now just came to me before of how do I connect with people usually, I think I love doing is like you do with me is those voice notes. I feel like they add
Hmm.
a level of trust and a level of authenticity, and it takes away. I think it adds a little layer because I think, like we said on social media, there's that layer of artificial safety. I think
Yeah.
that kind of dilutes a little bit when you have voice notes and you're able to put a voice behind the name and the face. So I was doing that with this person. I do that a lot with a lot of people. We get closer, and then that naturally led to I think we did a few days of exchanges of voice notes, and then by a few days later, I was like, I'd love to continue this conversation, but hopefully with less interruption and more of a back and forth in real time. Would you love to get on a call? And again, there was no agenda. I hadn't heard anything. I
Hmm.
had heard a few things that I was like, oh, we're very similar in a few things. Like, he's around my age. I don't know what he does. I don't know who he is, but I just know that, hey, there's a good energy right there, right? That's another thing you mentioned
Yeah.
as well is that vibe. It's that nudge. You want to feel that nudge. You want to feel that gut. We got on that call and we got to know each other on the call, and the more he shared, I heard something at the end where at the end of that connection call, I said, would you like us to I'd love to invite you to have some time where we can go deeper into that one thing you mentioned. Like, I heard you say that. This is what I heard. Do you think there's some truth in there? He's like, yeah, there is. I said, would you like to talk about that deeper in a different time, a different date?
Hmm.
Just your time. Like, I won't coach you, I won't sell you. I always soften it that way because I think people have their sales guard up. And he
Sure.
was like, honestly, yeah, I would love that. Thank you for offering that. I said, okay, we got on that call. And this is where in between that, I've already committed the person to that person to a resource. I've sent him something related to what he said. And I said, just for clarity, we're not going to get on that call if you haven't watched this at least twice. So
Mm,
already that's one example of how I've enrolled him already a little bit into his own life, because that video is not a video about me. It's nothing to do with me. I get nothing from him watching that video. It's not my YouTube channel. I said, if you watch it, it'll change something for you. So it's creating context around that too of, please watch it from this realm. Please watch it from the realm of what you shared with me on this call yesterday. And for clarity, if you want to accept that gift of reflection and getting to speak to me again, because you said it would be helpful for you, and we're only going to do that if you watch this video at least twice and you come back to me with your thoughts. And we did
mm,
that. And then we got on that call and it was amazing. We conversed and he was the one who was like, wow, like, at the end of that call, he was like, it just felt natural of like, I'd love to work with you, Julian. How does that look like? And then it was a financial thing where he was like, I genuinely don't know if I can financially do this. And I said, okay, well, I don't want to push you for that, but can I give you a piece of advice of what I think you could do to create that money sooner rather than later? And I said, but if I tell you that, can you promise you will take action on it? He says,
mm,
yeah. And now he's committed. And now he ended up a week, I think in 7 days, he created the money that he needed to work with me because I committed him to taking that action. Again, he saw that I was not getting anything from it, especially before that. So I think it's about seeing how can I enroll someone into something where I have zero vested interest, where I have, again, in this case, yes, I would be getting something out of it because he would, but maybe not. Maybe he'd end up making the money and then he would not come back to me and not work with me. So I think, without trying to make this too long, and I know it's already gone not long, but all to say is there's 1,400 ways I would say to enroll someone in their lives, and I think it's a creative profession. I've always found creative ways to
mm.
do so.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're, it's not necessarily that you were just going, "Hey, watch this," or else we aren't hopping on a call. The way you've set things up is you've really shared with them that this would be a value, right? And to make the most of the call, or else it's not worth hopping on. Watch this
Yeah, there you go.
at least twice. Um, do I have that
Yeah,
right?
spot on, spot on. It's
Yeah.
making it about them.
Um, Yeah, absolutely. I could always keep asking you more questions, but I love this, Julian.
Thank you,
And if someone
James.
wanted to just find you and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Honestly, Facebook works. Twitter, LinkedIn, just typing Julian Saad. I think you'd find me pretty easily, especially if in the community. But I would say Facebook is the easiest. But Facebook, LinkedIn, any social, just type in the name and you'll find me.
Cool,
Yeah, but
perfect.
thank you,
And
James.
I can be
Thanks for
found
the
at.
for yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, go for it. Go for it.
I just wanted to thank you, man. Like beautiful questions and conversation, and I loved how in so many directions where we took this. So thank you for creating this opportunity and making this happen.
Yeah, you got it. And yeah, I try to find those threads, and so I'm glad that we were able to do that. And I appreciate opening up and sharing. And for anyone listening, there is so much gold in here. You could be listening to this multiple times. And I think it's really going to transform people's being and how they're showing up in the world, bringing their purpose, and really connecting with people, right? Because who wants to just be in life alone? Be with fun people, connect with people, enjoy the process, and you get to make a difference in people's lives. That's such a wonderful thing. And thank you so much, Julian. And if
Thank
anyone
you.
wants to connect with me as well, Facebook or jamewhiteman.com, you can shoot me a message there. But thank you so much, Julian, for really taking the time to be here and share. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, James. I loved it. Much love to you. Much love to everybody. Thank you for watching.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.